Welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Travel Alert. I'm Steve Glenn.
I'm Paul Glenn.
Paul, hey, today we've got a very unique Weekly Travel Alert. As you know, we're in the travel business, and so I had an epiphany. What's an epiphany?
You had an epiphany.
I had one.
Your outlook has changed.
Well, yeah. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that today, and as it relates to travel in general.
Okay.
And so with that, I also want to remind our podcast people, radio show people that Executive Travel can be found on the web at executivetravel.com or down at 1212 O Street in Lincoln, Nebraska. And our easy to remember phone number is 402-435-8888. Now, are you ready to rumble?
Let's do it.
This week, I wrote that now is the return of face-to-face. And it struck me, a couple weeks ago, I was in Cincinnati with our team. We had Jennifer Beld, we had Justin Morris in sales, and myself, Julia, in account management as well. And we were all in the same room together. Mm-hmm. Paul,
and none of you live in the same place.
Yeah,
so it's not. This isn't a regular thing.
One's in Florida, one's in Indianapolis, one's in Lincoln, one's in Columbus, Nebraska area. And it struck me how powerful that was, because since COVID, we've been in this virtual nightmare. It's literally been a nightmare. Yeah. And so I sat down and I was preparing for this presentation. We were all sitting down. We weren't on Zoom. We weren't on email. We were face to face. And I thought, this is an epiphany. This is so unique. For the last 6 years, we've been in this hellhole. And I said, I got to talk about it. I got to remind people of the power of face-to-face. You could just feel it immediately. There's this energy, this collaboration. Because you can see somebody's eyes, see how they're smiling or frowning, see how they're sitting or crouching. Are they engaged? You know, and how many times, I got to admit it, I'm a sinner. I'm in a meeting on Zoom and doing other things. You're
always doing other things when you're on a Zoom meeting. I needed to talk to you about that anyway, so now I can check that off my to-do list.
But the point is, you're completely distracted, so the meetings are almost worthless because there's total distraction, and people are trying to be efficient, and this might not be a top-of-mind subject. And so it just struck me how then we could go back and forth. An idea would pop up, oh, that's stupid, or an idea would pop up, that's fantastic. And it just got me revved up.
I think because of the focus that you get from everybody, I think that's where that comes from. You know, I think if you want to be productive, if you need to have that conversation with somebody about whatever and you don't have the opportunity to do it in person, then you need to just make sure you have a really tight agenda, you pound it out, you move on to the next thing. Because, you don't get the collaboration, you don't get those things that you get when you're in person and able to really get that focus.
So I got back from that meeting, and then I remembered a video I had seen 36 years ago.
United
Airlines, 36 years ago. If you can go online, Google it on YouTube. And it's United Airlines. The boss comes out and all of his sales team's in the room. And he basically said to him, our best customer fired us today. And he said, because we had gone from meeting people, our customers in person, to meeting them on the phone or with a fax 36 years ago. It wasn't the internet, it was fax. It wasn't Zoom. And he said, but we're going to now go meet our customers because they don't know who we are anymore. They don't know what we do.
Well, and we need to know them.
And it struck me again, we're in the most powerful profession, Paul.
It's personal.
It is so personal. We're what makes relationships. We're in the relationship business, not in the travel business. We're in the relationship business to do that. And I think we've gotten lazy with Zoom, with all these virtual meetings, and it became emotional to me. I thought, man, oh man, we got to shake this world up and remind people the power of person to person.
Relationships.
Face to
At
face.
the end of the day, a relationship has more value than I think we have grown to appreciate over the last handful of years.
So I wrote down 5 things that I thought I'd remind our listeners to about face to face and the power of it. On this week's Weekly Traveler, every Tuesday at 10:30, we send out 100,000 emails to people that subscribe to us at executivetravel.com. And of course, we use that to put on this podcast every week, the Weekly Traveler podcast. So the energy of being in the room still wins. There's this amazing energy, and it's powerful when people are physically together. You can feel it, the momentum building, and I found that the ideas flowed.
3 years ago, I took the management team. 2 years ago, we went over to Italy and had a retreat, planning retreat, quarterly session, and it was the best meeting we've ever had. I mean, even looking back the last 2 years since that meeting, I don't think we've had as good of a strategically focused meeting as that. And
you got rid of the distractions?
Well, got rid of everything, yeah. And it was one where, especially because we were in Italy and 7-hour time difference, even if you did have a break, there was nothing popping up on your phone because your normal world was still asleep.
7 hours later.
Yeah. So, yeah, there was more power to that than what I could possibly pass on, and we need to do that again.
Yeah, it reminds me, we did some analysis, and we found that it was 30% cheaper to have meetings in Italy, even with a $1,500 airfare to Italy versus $600 to Charlotte, North Carolina. So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you might want to look at Italy for your small meetings, your planning meetings, your sales meetings, or incentives.
Executive meetings.
You bet. So number 2 on this week's edition of the Weekly Traveler, I wrote down, we're living in a virtual hangover. The shift to virtual meetings during COVID, Paul, as you know, was necessary, but it's still lingering on, and we can't let that be our driver. I mean, it's just not magical anymore.
When I look at this and think about this, and I look at, just in general demographics and communication and getting to, the things you mentioned about the energy and the collaboration and things like that, and we look at some of these younger generations that all their communications are done via technology, where are we in another 10 or 20 years if people don't understand the power of relationships and what being face-to-face brings to the table?
That guy goes to number 3 on my list of this week's Weekly Travel Alert. The headline reads, businesses built on relationships, not transactions. And I think what's happened since COVID is we've become a transactionally based society,
Yeah.
and we need to move backwards to those relationships. That's where the deepness, the richness of life is. That's where when you build a network, it's truly a network of people that knows people, their families, and who they are.
Yeah.
And today we've become more plastic, more transactional, and I think that's why there's this great emptiness in the world.
And people just live in their own little box, and how do you get fulfillment when you're in your own little box by yourself?
Man, this is Psychology 101, ladies and gentlemen. We're on the edge, but quite frankly, this was an epiphany to me, and I thought, we got to tell the world that it's time to get back to relationships away from transactions. Number 4, the best companies are getting back on the road. They're just like United Airlines in that video 36 years ago. They're basically saying, go visit our customers. I know as our company, we have customers all around the world, and every quarter we like to have our corporate client solutions people
Get
meet
out,
in
go
person with
yeah.
them, go through them, find out what's good, bad, ugly, know their kids, know their families, know their wants, their needs, their hurts. And I think that's one of the strengths of our company.
Well, and I think you and I go to enough meetings that we recognize you go to a meeting, good presentations, topics, discussions, whatever, but the magic comes from that lunch or that dinner or that drink together afterwards, where you can get deeper or you can get more personal. You can do that more one-on-one. And so, yeah, I mean, the magic actually happens when you're face to face.
Yeah, I think you've always told me that at the bar after the meeting, you always got more insight than during the meeting.
We can get deeper. We can get more specific to
people open up too,
people
don't
will
they?
Open up, well,
Yeah.
Get a couple glasses of wine into somebody, and
it's bourbon. Come on.
Well, for me, it's bourbon. They can have whatever they want. But yeah, you really do. But that's also then I can reach out to that person. If I just had a Zoom meeting with, say, another agency owner, and I've never had that drink and dinner with them afterwards, I'm much less likely to feel I could reach out to that person when I have a question come up than I am that person that I spent 3 hours with one evening having a bourbon and a cigar, and we have a personal relationship now.
Number 5 on this week's edition of the Weekly Traveler reads, face-to-face is now a competitive advantage. And I think companies are going to start planning that as part of their business plan is how do we get face-to-face? Because transactional Zoom is not going to cut it to be in a deep relationships and moving with relationships versus transactions. So I'm excited because I think now face-to-face is a competitive advantage.
And if you think about it, at the end of the day, if I know you personally and know your family and all those types of things, and we have that relationship, it's easier for me to come talk to you if I have a problem.
Right.
Than if you're just another person on a computer screen and my company, your company screwed something up, for me to just be able to say, I'm just going to walk away. I mean, I really don't know that person, so it doesn't have an emotional impact to me to be able to just say goodbye because there is no personal relationship.
The companies, Paul, that break through the virtual meeting hangover will actually separate themselves quickly in the future. And I'm excited. I typed this up and then sent it out to our whole team this last week. And because I was that excited about how we're in the travel business, we ought to be leading the way, leading the pack. Now, I don't have to tell you because you're in the plane every week, travel to another corner of the world.
You want to hear something that I've never been able to say in probably the last 25 years. I do not have a trip booked in my United app for anything in the future.
What?
As of today.
No, I've never. I don't believe it. I want to check this one out.
I'll show you. Yep. So
that is way. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to end on this. Face-to-face isn't old school. It's the future. And I think even with AI, with virtual, with Zoom, all those issues, I think we've gone through a cycle, Paul. We got to COVID. We went to the virtual cycle. Now we're saying people are looking at 6 years saying, this is not the way to do business. This is not the way of the future, because a future of emptiness, a future of no relationships, a future of plastic, a future of transactions only, that's not a world I want to live in.
No, I don't.
I want to live in a world with depth and relationship and people and families.
Emotions.
And
joy.
emotions.
I mean,
and joy
how do you
and
get
peace
joy?
and happiness.
Yeah.
You don't get that transactionally.
No.
You don't get that all. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you feel better today after our Psycho 101 class. But we've actually enjoyed talking about our observations of what's going on in both the travel industry and the world around us today. This is the Weekly Travel Alert, and we hope you join us next week.
Please like, subscribe, share, and add any comments or feedback on topics that would be of interest for future episodes. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.